Good evening, and welcome to my fourth kind of video journal where I talk about things that I find very fascinating, and I hope that you do too. Today, we're going to go into the philosophy of the fundamental value system within our systems of function. And I think that's going to be a very good topic that I think is very worth delving into. We're going to talk a little bit of neuroscience. You don't need to remember really any of it. All I'm going to do is kind of talk about the kind of like the 8 parts of the brain that have to do with your fundamental value systems. Because one thing about humans is that we're not wired to know things, but to believe in things, because emotional responses are much better than purely logical ones. Because, we've kind of all heard the argument or the development of there's a tiger in the bush because we hear rustling, okay? And because we hear the rustling, we're going to run away, even if it's just like a small bunny, right? Because we're more likely to survive if we run away. Now, that's basic stuff, okay? But that gives us a very good intuitive way to understand how we're wired. Now, we're going to go and talk about this line of thinking. So, I don't know if anyone's coined this term, but it's something I came up with that probably other people do too. I'm not saying that this is, unique to me because it's 4 words. Know nothing, consider everything. Because a lot of the times, we end up being very skeptical and analytical. While those are good things, you have to be like skeptic and know what you're talking about and not just believe in everything that sounds good to the ears, right? Which is why you have to find that analytical value within the realization that you know nothing. It's always constant growth. It's Jacob's ladder, right? You just keep climbing up those stairs of knowledge. And what I want to talk about is what knowledge is in my mind. So we have our fundamental value systems, okay, that kind of dictate how we live our lives. What knowledge is a manifestation of competence from our fundamental value systems. Because knowledge, it helps us survive, right? It's a level of competence. And if you realize that you are wrong or incompetent, guess what? In your mind, that translates as you're more likely to die, okay? And nobody wants to die. So, of course, negative emotions are going to be the the manifestation of what happens. That's probably not the right way to say it. It is the conclusive aspect of the situation when you are wrong. Okay, those negative emotions are going to be experienced. And so, what I want to talk about is a couple of the parts of the brain that are a part of our fundamental value system. So, the first one is the temporal parietal junction. Now, this doesn't have to do with the value system, it has to do with autobiographical perspective. Okay, and it maintains the perspective that you have or changes it. Okay, and this works in close relation, if I have it right, with the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which is about storing and processing your core values. So your perspective and your values are basically connected to the point to where it's really hard to differentiate outside of their respective categories. And that is beautiful. So we have the temporal parietal junction and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which are a part of perspective and processing those core values that either maintain the perspective you have or change that perspective. Now, in the interior temporal lobe, think about like right here. What that does is that it stores social knowledge which influence your moral concepts and values on a social level, because we're not just creatures that think critically, right? We take things. We need to gain knowledge from the external world around us. Okay? It's not all introspective. We have to consider what the world around us has to offer, so then we can then self-reflect using our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex around here, or yeah, whatever. Okay. I'm still trying to learn my brain anatomy. I know a lot of what things do. I have the basics down, but I'm more so going into neuropsychology. So, and that's not an excuse, okay? It's just there's a lot of parts of the brain. But the next three that I'm going to talk about is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. And those are involved in growing. It's the pursuit aspect of who we are and what we want to do and the goals that we pursue. And then our fundamental values are an exact reflection of what that is. Okay. Ah, dang it, my computer turned off. So now I have to fix it. I don't know how I'm going to fix this. This is annoying. I hate when this happens. My computer absolutely sucks. So we're going to go all the way over here, and you are going to be put right on my bed. All right, it's different lighting, but it's going to be a good time. So, from that standpoint, we know the parts of the brain that have to do with our fundamental values, and those abstract into the knowledge that you articulate and speak about. And so we know at a baseline level that it's all values, no matter how much we think they're correct. And because of that, we have to look at things differently than being completely skeptical and analytical of absolutely everything, because that is not the way to grow. It's only the way to destroy and tear down things around you. And so, because of that, because we want to still be analytical, the analytical part of you comes from humility. It's humility that guides us. And then once we come from a place of humility, then we can start the journey of an introspective process towards what we think we should believe in. And that comes from considering everything. Okay? You have to consider everything. Because if you don't, then you're just kind of going to go through life just feeling things instead of being what I call an empathetic intellectualist. Okay? That's what I call myself. It's like, "Oh, what are you? Like what's your philosophy?" Intellectual, I'm sorry, empathetic intellectualism. I'm starting a movement, and that's what it's called. Because a lot of times, we're very empathetic towards people. It's like, "Oh, I feel your pain. I feel exactly where you're coming from." And you do. You really know. And that's a skill, obviously. You have to develop it. But imagine if you could have that same level of empathy with different theories and different philosophies and different ideas. That would be beautiful. Absolutely beautiful if you could do that. So why don't you? Well, because, we need to be competent. And so, because we don't realize that that is a system built in for survival instead of knowledge, then we're completely guided by our primal instincts in this manner, even when it comes to the level of sophistication that involves, the prefrontal cortex and higher order thinking. We are still being just, we are still being pushed around by our internal processes that we are not aware of. And so, my goal is to help you to get aware of those and then get rid of the negative aspects of thinking philosophically. Okay? That, my friend, will completely change the way you look at things, because then you stop looking at things as one thing has to be right, one thing has to be wrong. It's kind of how it works, but at the same time, it's really not, because you don't know enough for it to be wrong or right. You can think you do, but you don't. I don't know if what I know is right because it stems just from my belief system. And that is okay with me because I realize I know nothing. And so, therefore, I have to consider everything and be empathetic towards any idea that I come across and be curious. What do you think intelligence is? Is it a super high IQ? Maybe. Maybe that's a part of it. But I think at a fundamental level, what intelligence is curiosity. It's a level of curiosity that you've forgotten about because the last time you've had a level of that curiosity was when you were a young child. You're missing that. Tap in to that childlike wonder of the world around you. Because I guarantee you, if you were a little introspective, look back on your childhood, forgetting all the negative aspects of what they were, you will see that you had questions that were very profound and were intrinsic and were never answered. And because of that, you were guided by complete negative emotion, which is fine, like it's good for survival in a way. But the thing is about the modern world, we're given the wonderful opportunity to redefine what it means to survive. And if you're looking to pursue, I guess a level of transcendence, for lack of a better word, a transcendent understanding of the pursuit of what is better than what you know, that is only going to come about with positive experiences. Because otherwise, if it's negative, then you're going to have a very ordered and structured view of how things should be. And the more structured and the more ordered it is, it's going to be very hard for you to change it. You have to be in a constant state of fluctuation and growth. Because otherwise, when you try to change your worldview, or if you come across something that is intellectually stimulating and good for you to consider, you won't, because you have a very structured and ordered and wired in neural path that is telling you if you change this, you're more likely to die. That's why we have to find balance between order and chaos. Because when you find that balance, you realize it's very flexible once you start doing that. And that, my friend, is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And it's that dance that you're looking for, you know? And it's not, I mean, Nietzsche said you can look at, what was it? Imagine if truth was a woman, and you had to win her over. That's a very good way of looking at it. I think you really nailed it there. Because in order to win a woman over, you have to try different things, you know? Because you can't just do it one way and just boom, 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 keep trying it, because then you'll never succeed, right? But if you're different, if you seek to understand, if you go about it different ways, and you pursue her and not your fantasy of her, and that's where the relationship starts to grow. That is great. Look at truth as a woman, okay? And you have to win her over, because otherwise you're going to be a tyrant and no idea besides what you have been developing since, probably the early stages of your life is going to be good enough. Because it has to fit within that worldview. Otherwise, you'll die in your mind. That's what it's telling you. It's because you'll realize you are incompetent. And since you are incompetent, then what's going to happen is a failure to survive. I can't stress this enough. Like, how profound is that understanding? Which is why you have to look at it not from, oh, I know this is right, I know this is wrong. You have to look at it from a place of, this is what I believe in. Now let's abstract it. Let's bring it to light. Bring what you know to light and not be scared to change it because you considered what the other person had to say. And that doesn't mean that once you're empathetic and you realize the perspective of the other person, you have to change. That's not the point. The point is to be flexible and curious. That is going to be the way to grow. And once you do that, all of the different functions in your brain that were so ordered and structured are going to be flexible and malleable and more susceptible to neuroplasticity and growth. And a part of it is doing what you don't want to do, which is be wrong. And the more you accept being wrong, all those brain parts that I mentioned are going to get more developed and grow bigger. And I'm pretty sure like all of those, all of the ones that I mentioned grow. And oh my gosh, it's absolutely beautiful. Truly absolutely beautiful the way it does that. And neurons that fire together wire together. Okay? And so if your wiring creates a level of flexibility and intuitive understanding of the other person, that relationship of understanding truth and really getting to know her, it's going to be truly incredible. And you're going to wake up to so many new ideas and understandings that you never even thought possible once you give it a chance. You have to give it a chance because you can't do it your way. Okay? If you become honest with yourself, then you'll realize what you are missing. And I can't stress this enough. Honesty is the key. What's the point of even doing life itself if you're not an honest person? In my opinion, you're better off being non existent than being honest, than being dishonest. Okay? Dishonesty is atrocious, but it's so easy to fall into. Because, listen, we're not just ourselves, we're not just our ego. We're far more complex than that. And we have God knows how long of a evolutionary history creating a level of systematic function that is successful to survive. It's deep. We are such an incredible system, a system of function. We're functioning correctly. I mean, who knows what the optimal apex like person would look like, right? And it's hard because now we're developing not for physical survival, but for mental survival. We're trying to reach a technological point to where our physical needs can just be sustained through technological advancement, and then we can just focus on our minds, which is an interesting thought. But me personally, I absolutely love training. I do a lot of boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, pretty much MMA. Just not a lot of wrestling, I will say. I do like to wrestle. I've done a couple wrestling stuff. Oh, this is so annoying. I want to get it nice. I need to get an actual freaking camera, dude. I just use my phone. Why can't I do this? I used to be able to do this. You know what? This is just gonna be how it is. Maybe I can just hold it. There we go. That's not bad. I'll take that. Okay. I'm talking about this for 19 minutes, and honestly, that's really all I have to say. Watch this again. Consider everything. It is so vital and so important. More important than anything you'd ever possibly do. As well as being honest. Because none of this is going to work without honesty. Like, I promise you, it's not. It's practically impossible for it to work without honesty. Because once kind of meditate, you could even do meditation. Yes, meditation is a great way to do that. Or put yourself in uncomfortable situations and then be proactive in analyzing them and understanding exactly where you came from. And a lot of that has to do with you got to study the brain, study the psychology of humans, do all of these things, and you will succeed. I promise you. It's like, why wait for 10, 20 years before you realize that, oh, I need to be an honest person. I need to look at things from a perspective of genuine curiosity. When you can just do that now. Like, seriously. What is stopping you? Like, there's no way Like personally, you can't say I I know God exists or I know that God doesn't exist. That's not how it works. It's not for you to derive. You can believe that God exists or you can believe that he doesn't. But that is the farthest you can go. And I promise you, the more you are flexible with that, life becomes so much more just beautiful. The more you look at it from a flexible standpoint. Say, well, I don't know. And then pursue the things that are good and beautiful and your goals. I mean, what are our fundamental values for it? Pursuit of higher excellence. I call it the one-on-one relationship with the pursuit of the transcendent understanding of the ultimate good. I know that's very Platonistic, and so maybe a lot of people won't like that interpretation, but I think it's perfect and it sums up what we should be doing wonderfully, which is pursuing what is greater than us. I mean, we literally have a part of our brain called the mesolimbic pathway. That's a dopamine reward system, pretty popular thing, dopamine. And what it does is that, it's anticipatory. It's like, what comes next? What's the next more? It always wants more of something. And so I'd recommend doing some research into dopamine and your dopamine pathways because, man, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And what I'm going to say is that it'll never be satisfied, which is good, actually. It's like, what? Why would you never want to be satisfied? It's like, well, satisfied on what? The here and now chemicals are for the moment. Dopamine is for the next moment. And if you have that pursuit of the ultimate good, the ultimate truth, you can always have more of that. I promise you. And so, in a way, it will be satiated if you look at it from that perspective. And that is where we're going to leave it. All right. Think about it. Be introspective. Be honest. And remember, know nothing, but consider everything. Thank you.